Can I offer you an egg in this trying time? Is it still a trying time? I think so. Yeah, Milo agrees. Hi guys, and welcome back to my kitchen. If you are new here, my name is Kaylee, and today in my kitchen we are going to be making congee. Congee is a dim sum staple, and it's one of my favorite. And one of our favorite types of congee has pork and century egg. So we're gonna be exploring some ingredients that maybe you haven't had before. Some ingredients that have an interesting reputation due to popular media.
1,000-year-old egg, which I don't even know how that's possible.
Yeah.
We're gonna talk about how century egg is delicious. And fun fact, it's not a century old. Now, today's method of congee, we're going to be using the low and slow traditional way of making it. So it's gonna take about an hour to an hour and 15 minutes to make our beautiful rice porridge. If you want to speed it up, I've linked below some recipes that suggest how you could use maybe a pressure cooker, an instant pot, which is such a classic these days, or even a way to speed it up by freezing your rice overnight. Today we're going to be using a combination of dried shrimp and dried scallops to create a beautiful umami flavor in our congee. Now, this is just one version of congee. There are so many different ways to make it, but this is the one that we're going to be doing today. So what I've actually done before getting started is I got about 2/3 of a cup of water here, a 1/4 cup of the dried shrimp, and 2 tablespoons of the dried scallops. I'm just letting those rehydrate a little bit while I quickly get all my prep ready before I start to cook up our congee. To add some more flavor to our congee before we start cooking, we're also going to quickly mince up 3 cloves of garlic and about 2 tablespoons of ginger. Now that we have prepped our ginger, garlic, and we've rehydrated our shrimp and scallops, it's time to actually start cooking today. First thing that we're gonna do is actually turn up our heat in our pot to about a medium high and add in some vegetable oil, just about 2 tablespoons, just enough to cover the bottom. Then adding in our ginger and garlic, we're gonna cook that for about 30 seconds until it gets nice and fragrant. Once that is fragrant, it's time to add in our shrimp and scallops. Now, we don't wanna pour in the shrimp, scallops, and all of the water, so I'm actually going to quickly drain these, but reserve the liquid that's left over, because I can use that as some of the liquid in our congee. Once the shrimp and scallops have been added in, I'm gonna use my spoon just to gently break up the scallops so they're not big pieces. We do want it to kind of evenly disperse throughout the cooking. And after that's cooked for about a minute or 2, it's time to add in our rice. Now, when it comes to making congee, there are lots of different ratios out there that you can use of liquid to rice. Today, we're gonna go with about a 9-to-1 ratio of liquid to rice. So we have 1 cup of rice, and I'm also going to be adding in about 6 cups of chicken stock. We're also gonna add in 3 cups of water as well to let that cook. All right, our congee is at a boil. So right now what I'm going to do is actually reduce the heat to a low, cover this, and we're gonna let it simmer for about an hour, just stirring occasionally every 10-15 minutes, whenever you remember. All right, while our congee is simmering in the back, it's time for us to start preparing our pork and the marinade to go with it. So I've got about a 1/2 pound of pork loin here, and I'm gonna be cutting it up into some thin strips and then marinating it with a few different seasonings. You could also do congee with pork bones or different cuts of pork as well. It's totally up to you. I just like this one. It's nice and easy, and I don't have to worry about pulling the bones out later on. Once I have my pork and it's been cut into the thin strips, I'm then gonna season it with 2 tablespoons of soy sauce, 1 teaspoon of sugar, a 1/4 teaspoon of white pepper, 1 teaspoon of cooking wine, and 1/2 teaspoon of cornstarch. Mixing that well and then covering that until it's ready to add into the congee. Let's talk about century egg. So for our recipe today, we're gonna be using 2 preserved duck eggs, sometimes known as century egg, sometimes 1,000-year-old egg, 100-year-old egg. However, contrary to popular belief, it is not in fact 100 years old. So whatever Joe Rogan told you on Fear Factor in the early 2000s, none of that is true.
We're gonna play pool Fear Factor style. 100-year-old eggs.
These are at most a few months old, and these are preserved eggs. They're preserved in an alkaline type clay that's made out of wood ash, quicklime, and salt. I've watched some videos online of people trying to make preserved eggs at home. It looks very interesting. Perhaps if I have the space one day, I'll attempt it on my own. Now, when we break into this, you're gonna see that the yolk turns into this darker, almost green color, and it's beautiful and very, very creamy. Whereas the egg white is gonna become this translucent sort of brown shade. Now, it doesn't just smell like a typical egg. I would imagine an egg doesn't smell like anything when it's in a shell, but I've never actually smelled it. There's a slight ammonia scent to it when you take it right out of the package, but it's been a few seconds now, it's kind of dissipated. But let's break into this one so we can see just exactly what's hiding in here. You can see that the shell on a duck egg is much thicker than on a chicken egg. Oh, there's that beautiful brown color. There it is. 100-year-old egg. Gorgeous. You can see how gelatinous that egg white looks and how beautiful and creamy the egg yolk is. For our recipe today, we're actually going to be cutting this into some small pieces to put inside the congee. Now, you can also eat century egg just the way that it is, and if you'd be curious to learn a little bit more about that, give this video a thumbs up, and perhaps I can do another video just going through a super quick recipe on how to eat century egg all by itself. Now, after the congee has been simmering for about an hour, it's time to lift up the lid and see how things are looking. If it's still looking quite, what's the word I'm looking for? Soupy, I suppose, because we do want the rice to absorb a lot of that liquid and it's going to become almost like a porridge. If it's still looking like the rice and the broth are two very separate elements, continue to let that cook for a little bit longer. If it's starting to look a bit more cohesive, nice and soft, then it's time for us to add in our pork and century egg. So we're going to leave that uncovered for about 15 minutes. With both of these inside, that way it'll cook the pork through. They're quite small pieces, so it's not going to take very long. And it will also evenly distribute our beautiful century egg. You'll notice that as soon as you put the pork in, because the congee is so hot, that it's going to start cooking right away. So you can definitely see a difference in color in that pork that's been placed in there. Once the pork and the century egg is mixed in with the congee, we're going to leave that uncovered for 15 minutes. I still have this on a low heat. You can stir occasionally just to make sure that the pork is getting evenly cooked all the way through. Man, it smells so good. Now, when it comes to garnishing your congee, the possibilities are endless. I've seen people garnish with beautiful shiitake mushrooms, chili oil, julienne ginger, some fresh scallions, cilantro, even some Chinese donut. Now, these I picked up from a local spot just down the street. How stunning does this look? I was already making the congee. I didn't want to also whip up a Chinese donut, but if you want to make them at home, I do have a video that I can link up there for you to check out. These are so incredible. The Chinese donut, you can eat one of two ways. You can use it on the side and dip. It's like your utensil to eat your congee, or you can slice it up and place it on top as your garnish. Either way, this is a great addition and it adds a lot of texture to the dish because the congee itself is very soft and this has a little bit of a crunch to it. For our congee today, I'm just going to be garnishing this with some sliced scallions and some of our beautiful Chinese donuts. I don't think I need any chili oil, but it's always good to have just in case. Alright, it's finally time for our taste test. We've got our beautiful single portion of congee here and the family style portion of congee as well. It's crazy to think that 1 cup of rice can make so much food. I've also got my beautiful Chinese donuts to dip into my congee. They're so crispy. The congee itself smells amazing. I'm so impressed with how much fragrance that broth gives. I thought it might be overpowered by the shrimp and the scallops, but I don't think so. Let's try a bite. Oh wow. Let's get some of that century egg and pork in there. Oh, so delicious. Because you only put the pork in for the last 15 minutes, it doesn't overcook, which means it's still beautifully cooked, but nice and soft in the center. And by cutting up the century egg into those small little pieces, it's evenly dispersed between all of the congee, and it just adds a beautiful texture. Sometimes you get that gelatinous egg white, other times you'll get that creamy egg yolk. That's my favorite. Almost forgot to dip this in. Best utensil ever, hands down. Now, admittedly, my congee's been sitting out for a few minutes because I've been taking quite a few food pictures, or at least trying my best to, so it's thickened up quite a bit. If you find that your congee's a little bit too thick when you're cooking it, you can always add a little bit of extra water if you want to loosen it up a little bit more. I might even do that when I reheat the congee tomorrow. This is gonna be an awesome breakfast. This was awesome. I really love making this recipe for you, and I really love that we were able to do it with some authentic Chinese ingredients. If you recreate this recipe, please tag me on any and all social media. I would love to see your recreation, what you were able to come up with, and comment down below, what are your favorite congee toppings? Please don't forget to give this video a thumbs up. It helps out my channel a lot, and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, so you don't miss next week's video. And until next week, I'll see you then. Bye guys.